Princess Asari sat in her private chamber aboard the diplomatic cruiser, staring at the stars rushing past. She felt tired. The peace talks with the Korthan Collective had lasted 3 weeks, and still, war seemed inevitable. Her crystalline skin flickered with dim blue light, a sign of her exhaustion. She was third in line to the celestial throne of the Velrosian Empire, and she carried the weight of billions on her shoulders. "Your Highness, we are approaching the demarcation zone," her captain announced through the communication panel. "We should reach Velrosian space in 6 hours." Zathari nodded, though he could not see her. The demarcation zone was a dangerous region between civilized space and the lawless outer reaches. Pirates and raiders often hid there, waiting for easy prey. But her ship had a full honor guard, 20 of the finest Velrosian warriors, trained since childhood. She felt safe, but she was wrong. The attack came without warning. One moment, the stars were peaceful. The next, the entire ship shook violently. Alarms screamed throughout the corridors. Red lights flashed everywhere. Zathari grabbed the edge of her desk to keep from falling. "We're under attack," the captain's voice shouted. "Skrull raiders. Multiple ships. Shields failing. The Skrull." Zathari's blood went cold. The Skrull were insectoid creatures, brutal and without mercy. They captured important people and sold them to the highest bidder. A Velrosian princess would bring them enough credits to buy a fleet. Her door burst open. 2 of her personal guards rushed in, their energy weapons ready. "Your Highness, we must get you to the throne room. It has the strongest shields." Zathari ran with them through the shaking corridors. Explosions echoed through the walls. She heard screams. Her people were dying. The 3 of them reached the throne room and sealed the heavy doors behind them. 4 more guards were already inside, forming a defensive line. "They are cutting through the hull," one guard reported, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "They will be here soon." Zathari stood behind her guards, her hands trembling. She had trained for diplomacy, not war. She could speak 12 languages and negotiate peace between ancient enemies, but she had never held a weapon. Now she would die because of that weakness. The doors glowed red as the Skrull cut through them. Her guards raised their weapons. The princess closed her eyes and reached out with her telepathic abilities, trying to send one last message to her father across the stars. But the distance was too great, and her thoughts scattered in panic. The doors exploded inward. Skrull warriors poured through the opening, 6 of them, then 8, then 12. They were massive creatures, each standing over 7 feet tall, with thick armor-like shells and 4 arms that each held a weapon. Their mandibles clicked with anticipation. The battle was short and brutal. Zathari's guards fought with honor and skill, but the Skrull had numbers and surprise. One by one, her protectors fell. Soon, only 2 guards remained, standing directly in front of her. The Skrull leader, bigger than the others, raised a weapon that crackled with electricity. Zathari prepared to die. Then, from a side corridor she had not even noticed, a figure appeared. They wore a combat suit that was old and damaged, covered in scratches and burns from countless battles. A full helmet covered their face, smooth and featureless except for a dark visor. The suit had no markings, no symbols of any military or government. The stranger moved fast. Faster than Zathari had ever seen anyone move. They carried an energy rifle in one hand and some kind of blade in the other. The first Skrull warrior turned toward the newcomer, but before it could react, the stranger shot it 3 times in the gaps of its armor. The Skrull fell. The other raiders screamed their war cries and charged. The mysterious warrior did not retreat. Instead, they ran forward to meet the attack. What happened next seemed impossible. The stranger fought like nothing Zathari had ever witnessed. They combined technology with brutal, physical combat. When a Skrull swung its blade, The warrior ducked under it and stabbed upward through a weak point in the armor. When another fired its weapon, the stranger rolled behind cover, then threw some kind of explosive that sent 2 raiders flying backward. But what shocked the princess most was the raw violence of it. This was not the clean, elegant combat of Varosian warriors. This was savage, efficient, and terrifying. The stranger used everything as a weapon: the environment, broken pieces of the door, even the bodies of fallen enemies. They fought with a kind of controlled fury that seemed almost primitive, yet it worked. One by one, the scroll fell. The last one, the large leader, tried to run. The stranger shot it in the back without hesitation. Silence filled the throne room. Zathari's 2 remaining guards stared at the mysterious fighter with a mixture of awe and fear. Bodies lay everywhere. Smoke drifted through the air. The stranger turned to face them. The helmet gave nothing away. Then a voice came through a modulator, deep and distorted. "Princess Zathari of Velros?" She nodded, unable to speak. "This ship is dying. More raiders are coming. If you want to live, come with me now. Who are you?" Zathari finally found her voice. The figure paused, then answered simply. "Call me Corvus. That's all you need to know." One of her guards stepped forward. "We do not take orders from unknowns. Identify yourself and your species." Corvus did not answer. Instead, they turned and started walking toward the side corridor. "Stay here and die, or follow me and live. You have 10 seconds to decide." Zasavi looked at her guards, then at the bodies of those who had died protecting her. She thought of her duty, her people, her empire. If she died here, the peace talks would fail completely. War would consume thousands of worlds. "We follow," she said. They ran through the damaged ship, following Corvus through passages the princess had never known existed. Behind them, they heard more scrawl boarding parties searching for survivors. Corvus moved with perfect knowledge of the ship's layout, leading them to a small docking port hidden beneath the cargo bay. There, attached to her ship, was the smallest, ugliest freighter Zathari had ever seen. It looked like it had been built from spare parts of a dozen different vessels. Patches covered the hull. Strange symbols were painted on its side. Inside. "Now," Corvus ordered Dot as soon as they were aboard. Corvus sealed the airlock and ran to the cockpit. The engines roared to life with a sound that made Zathari wince. This ship sounded like it might explode at any moment. "Hold on," Corvus warned. The freighter tore away from the dying diplomatic cruiser, just as a massive explosion consumed the larger ship. Zathari watched through the viewport as her beautiful vessel broke apart, taking the bodies of her honor guard with it into the void. Tears ran down her crystalline face as Corvus pushed the battered ship into hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light, and they vanished into the unknown. A princess and her mysterious savior. Flying toward an uncertain future, Zathari stared at the back of Corvus's helmeted head and wondered what kind of being had just saved her life. And more importantly, she wondered what they would want in return. The ship that Corvus called the Broken Promise was everything a royal vessel was not. The corridors were narrow and cramped. Exposed wires hung from the ceiling in places. The air smelled of oil and something Zathari could not identify. Strange objects filled every corner: weapons, tools, artifacts from dozens of different worlds, all piled together without order. Zathari's 2 surviving guards insisted on searching the ship for threats. Corvus allowed it with a wave of their hand, clearly unconcerned. While they explored, the princess sat in what passed for a common area, trying to process everything that had happened. "Why did you save me?" she asked when Corvus entered the room. The helmeted figure paused, then moved to a control panel on the wall. "I was in the area. I monitored distress signals. Your ship sent one before it died. That is not an answer. You risked your life for strangers. Why? Through the helmet's modulator, Corvus's voice came out flat and emotionless. Does it matter? You are alive. Be grateful. Zathari felt anger rise in her chest. She was a princess third in line to the celestial throne. People did not speak to her this way, but she swallowed her pride. This rude stranger had saved her life when her own guards could not. At least tell me where we are going, she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Nowhere safe. Not yet. Corvus pulled up a star chart on the wall display. The scrawl sent your ship's transponder signature to every criminal network in the sector. There are bounties on you already. Huge ones. Every pirate, raider, and mercenary will be looking for you. Then take me to the nearest Galactic Council station. They will protect me and reward you. Corvus laughed, though the modulator made it sound harsh and metallic. Council stations are the first place they will watch. No. We need to disappear for a while. Let things cool down. I know a place refuge station. It is neutral territory. No questions asked. We can arrange quiet transport back to Verosian space from there. Zezeri's guards returned, reporting that the ship seemed secure, though they clearly did not trust Corvus. The princess made them stand down. Whether she liked it or not, she needed this mysterious warrior. The journey through the outer reaches took 3 days. 3 long, difficult days where Zathari learned just how dangerous the galaxy could be. On the first day, they passed through an old battlefield from a war fought centuries ago. Thousands of broken ships floated in space like tombstones. Corvus explained that automated defense drones still protected the area, programmed to attack anything that came too close. We need to pass through, Corvus said. Going around would add a week to our journey. Then how do we survive? One of the guards asked. Corvus did not answer with words. Instead, they flew the broken promise directly into the debris field. The old drones activated immediately, their ancient weapons still deadly. But Corvus flew like someone who had danced with death 1,000 times. The ship twisted and turned through the wreckage, using the broken vessels as cover. Zathari held onto her seat, her knuckles turning white. As weapons fire lit up the space around them, they made it through with only minor damage. Zathari released a breath she had not known she was holding. On the second day, Corvus brought them to a dark trading post built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. They needed information about safe routes ahead. Zathari and her guards stayed hidden on the ship while Corvus went to meet with information brokers through the ship's external cameras. Zathari watched Corvus enter a bar filled with some of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. She saw the warrior sit down with a creature that looked like a blob of living slime with too many eyes. They talked for several minutes. Then, the creature made some kind of signal, and 6 armed thugs surrounded Corvus's table. The princess gasped, ready to call her guards to help. But before she could, Corvus moved. The warrior grabbed the table and flipped it into 2 of the thugs, sending them flying. Another thug fired a weapon, but Corvus had already moved, using one of the fallen thugs as a shield. The fight was over in seconds, with all 6 attackers on the ground, and Corvus walking calmly out of the bar with the information they needed. How is one person so dangerous? One of her guards whispered. Zathari had no answer. On the third day, they were found by a Skrull hunter-killer pack 3 fast ships designed for chasing down prey. The broken promise was not fast enough to outrun them in open space. Corvus had to fight. The warrior's piloting skills were incredible, but the ship itself was old and weak. The Skrull ships had better weapons and shields. It should have been an easy victory for the raiders, but Corvus did not fight like a normal pilot. They used tricks that seemed almost like cheating. When the Skrull ships tried to surround the broken promise, Corvus flew straight toward a small moon. dragging the enemy into its thin atmosphere. The friction damaged the scroll ships more than the lighter broken promise. When one raider got too close, Corvus suddenly reversed thrust and let it fly past, then shot its engines from behind. Throughout the battle, Zathari watched Corvus work. She noticed small things. The way they breathed heavily during stress. They needed oxygen like her species, but seemed to need more of it. The way they adjusted the ship's gravity slightly higher than Varosian standard, as if they were used to heavier worlds. The way they fought with a combination of careful planning and sudden, violent action. After they escaped the scroll ships, Zathari found Corvus in the cockpit. Running system checks. "You are very skilled," she said carefully. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "Here and there. The outer reaches is a good teacher if you survive long enough to learn." "And your species?" "You have never told me what you are." The helmet turned toward her. Even through the dark visor, she could feel Corvus staring at her. "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters to me." Corvus turned back to the controls. "I am from a world the Galactic Council would rather forget. That is all you need to know." That night, Zathari could not sleep. The small cabin Corvus had given her was comfortable enough, but her mind would not rest. She kept thinking about her mysterious savior. Something about them felt familiar, but she could not place it. She heard sounds coming from the cargo bay. Quietly, she left her cabin and moved through the dark corridors. The door to the cargo bay was partially open. Through the gap, she saw Corvus. The warrior had removed most of their armor and was practicing combat forms in the empty space. They wore only a thin undersuit now, their helmets still firmly in place. Zathari watched in fascination as Corvus moved through fighting patterns that emphasized quick movements, using momentum and leverage. Every technique was designed to hurt or kill efficiently. Then Corvus paused and reached for a ration bar on a nearby crate. The warrior lifted their helmet just enough to take a bite, just a few inches. In that brief moment, Zathari caught a glimpse of smooth, pale skin. Not scales, not chitin, not crystal. Skin. Fleshy, mammalian skin. Before she could see more, the helmet snapped back down. Corvus froze, as if sensing they were being watched. Zathari quickly and quietly returned to her cabin, her heart racing. What species had skin like that? She ran through all the races she knew in her mind. Hundreds of species in the Galactic Council, and she had studied most of them. But she could not place what she had seen. Sleep finally came, but her dreams were filled with questions. Tomorrow they would reach Refuge Station. Perhaps there, she would finally learn the truth about the mysterious warrior called Corvus. But Zathari had no idea just how shocking that truth would be, or how much it would change everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. Refuge Station appeared on their view screen like a massive ring of metal orbiting a dead world. Thousands of ships docked along its outer surface, from tiny personal craft to huge cargo haulers. Lights blinked everywhere, and radio chatter filled dozens of different languages. "Stay close and keep your head down," Corvus instructed as they prepared to dock. "This place is neutral, but that just means everyone is equally dangerous." Zathari pulled a cloak over her crystalline features. Her guards flanked her as they followed Corvus through the docking tunnel and into the station proper. The princess had visited many trading posts in her diplomatic career, but nothing like this. The air smelled of 100 different atmospheres mixing together. Beings of every shape and size crowded the corridors, pushing past each other without courtesy. Corvus led them through the chaos with confident steps, clearly familiar with this place. They passed markets selling weapons, illegal technology, and things Asari did not want to identify. Music blared from bars filled with laughing criminals. Fights broke out on street corners, while crowds gathered to watch and place bets. How can such a place exist? Zathari asked quietly. Because the galaxy needs places like this, Corvus replied. Not everything fits in the Council's neat little rules. Sometimes people meet a place where the law does not reach. They secured a small set of rooms in a commercial district, paying with credits that could not be traced. Corvus told them to stay inside while the warrior went to arrange transport back to Verosian space. The hours passed slowly. Zathari paced the cramped room, feeling trapped and useless. Finally, she could stand it no longer. I am going to the market, she announced to her guards. I need fresh air, even if it is the recycled air of this station. Her guards protested, but she was still a princess. They had to obey. With her cloak pulled tight and her guards watching carefully, Zathari ventured into the commercial district. She told herself she was just looking around, but truthfully, she hoped to learn more about Corvus. The warrior had to buy supplies somewhere. The market was overwhelming. Vendors shouted in a dozen languages, selling everything imaginable. Zathari found herself fascinated despite the danger. She stopped at a stall selling books and data chips from across the galaxy. The vendor, a small reptilian creature with too many teeth, grinned at her. Looking for anything special, lady? Just browsing, Zathari said, keeping her voice neutral. Then she saw it. A data chip with a symbol she recognized, the seal of the Galactic Council's Xenological Archives. She picked it up, curious. Ah, that one, the vendor said. Information about restricted species. Very popular with tourists who want to know about the dangerous ones. Got information on Deathworlders, prohibited zones, all that exciting stuff. Deathworlders? Zathari asked. Sure. Species from high-gravity worlds with dangerous conditions. The Council keeps most of them restricted or monitored. That chip has data on all of them. Kralix, Druin, and even the humans. Zathari's crystalline skin flickered with surprise. Humans? Yeah, from Earth. The newest species the Council found. Primitives, really, but dangerous ones. The Council quarantined their whole system. Can't have Deathworlders running around civilized space, right? Before Zathari could respond, she heard shouts from across the market. Her head turned, and her heart stopped. 3 Skrull warriors were pushing through the crowd, their insectoid heads turning as they scanned faces. They were looking for someone. Looking for her. One of them pointed directly at her. They had found her. Her guards moved to protect her, but the market erupted into chaos. The Skrull charged forward, not caring who they knocked aside. Zathari ran, her guards fighting to keep the raiders back. But there were too many people, too much confusion. Then Corvus appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. The warrior crashed into the nearest Skrull from the side, driving some kind of blade between the armor plates. The raider screamed and fell. The other Skrull turned their weapons on Corvus, but the warrior was already moving, using the crowd and market stalls as cover. What followed was brutal. Corvus fought with the same efficient violence Zathari had seen before, but this time in a crowded civilian area. The warrior threw a vendor's cart into one Skrull, sending exotic fruits and the raider flying in opposite directions. Another Skrull fired its weapon, missing Corvus and hitting a support beam that showered sparks on everyone nearby. Zathari watched in horror and fascination as Corvus dismantled the Skrull attack with tactical precision. But during the fight, one of the raiders fired a plasma bolt that struck Corvus's helmet at an angle. The princess heard the hissing sound of seals breaking. The helmet cracked along the side, pieces of it falling away. Corvus continued fighting, but now the helmet was failing. More pieces fell. And then, as Corvus delivered a final blow to the last Skrull warrior, the entire faceplate came loose and clattered to the ground. Zathari saw the face beneath, and her world changed forever. The face was mammalian. Primate descended with bilateral symmetry and expressive features. Smooth, pale skin stretched over strong bones. Dark hair fell across the forehead. And the eyes, they were a deep brown color, filled with intelligence and something that looked like resignation. It was a human face. Corvus was human. The princess felt her legs go weak. Humans, the youngest species to achieve faster than light travel. The species that the Galactic Council had found only 70 years ago, already destroying their own world through war and pollution. The species that was divided into hundreds of tribal nations that fought each other endlessly. The species that came from a death world, a planet so heavy, so hostile, so filled with predators and diseases that it had created the most dangerous creatures the Council had ever encountered. Humans were forbidden from leaving their home system. The quarantine was absolute. They were considered too violent, too unpredictable, too numerous, and too aggressive to be trusted in civilized space. In council schools, human history was taught as a warning, a lesson in what happened when a species developed technology before achieving enlightenment. And yet here stood a human, having saved her life multiple times, having shown skill and honor that rivaled the greatest warriors she had ever known. The human Marcus Corvus. She suddenly realized that must be his real name, met her eyes across the destroyed market stall. He saw the recognition, the shock, the fear. Without a word, he grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the exit. "Move, now," he shouted, his voice no longer modulated but raw and human. They ran back to the ship, her guards following in stunned silence. Behind them, station security was arriving, drawn by the fighting. Once aboard the Broken Promise, Marcus sealed the airlock and ran to the cockpit. The engines roared to life. "Wait," Zathari said, her voice shaking. "We need to talk about later. We talk later. Right now, we run." The ship tore away from refuge station, just as security ships began to give chase. But Marcus knew how to fly better than they knew how to chase. Within minutes, they had vanished into the debris fields surrounding the dead world, and then into hyperspace. Only then did Marcus finally turn to face her. He stood there, fully revealed now, a human in the flesh. He was shorter than her by several inches, built compact and muscular in a way that came from high gravity. Scars marked his face and arms, evidence of a hard life. He looked to be in his 30s by human aging standards, though she was not sure. "So now you know," he said quietly. "I am human, one of the forbidden ones. A Terran ghost, as they call us in the shadows. I expect you want me to turn myself in, or maybe you will call the Council Enforcement Division yourself." Zathari's mind raced with 1,000 questions, but only one came out. "Why did you save me? Humans are not supposed to care about the rest of us. The Council says your kind only understands violence and self-interest." Marcus laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "The Council says a lot of things about humans. Most of it is garbage meant to justify keeping us locked in our own system like criminals. But I saved you because it was the right thing to do. Because someone needed help and I could help them. Is that so hard to believe? But you come from," Zathari struggled to find words. "Earth is a death world. Your species evolved fighting for every scrap of survival. You wage war on each other constantly. The Council's reports are propaganda," Marcus interrupted, his voice hard. "Yes, Earth is a harsh world. Yes, we have wars. Yes, we are violent. But we are also capable of incredible kindness, sacrifice, and honor. The Council does not want to see that. They want to see us as monsters because it is easier than admitting they are terrified of what we might become if given the chance." He moved to a cabinet and pulled out a small storage device. He tossed it to Zathari, who caught it instinctively. "That contains 15 years of evidence I have collected," Marcus said. "Records of humans who escaped the quarantine, like me, and what we have really been doing out here. Not all of us are mercenaries or pirates. Some of us are doctors helping refugee colonies, engineers solving impossible problems on frontier worlds, traders bringing supplies to places the Council has forgotten. And yes, some of us are fighters like me, but we fight to protect people, not hurt them. Zathari stared at the device in her hands, then back at Marcus. Everything she had been taught was being challenged. This human had shown her more honor than many so-called civilized beings. The hours that followed were tense. Zathari sat in the common area of the Broken Promise, studying the data Marcus had given her. Her guard stood in the corner, watching the human with suspicion and confusion. Marcus himself worked in the cockpit, plotting their next move. The data chip contained years of records. Zathari read reports of human doctors who had saved entire colonies from plague, working without payment or recognition. She saw evidence of human engineers who had repaired critical systems on dying space stations when no one else would help. There were testimonies from aliens who had been rescued by humans, protected by humans, befriended by humans, but there were also darker records. Incidents where humans had been captured by Council forces and never seen again. Reports of humans killed on sight by Enforcement Division ships. Evidence of a systematic campaign to keep humanity contained, not for the galaxy's safety, but out of fear of what humans might become. This cannot all be true, Zathari said. Though her voice lacked conviction, Marcus entered the common area, carrying 2 cups of a warm beverage. He offered one to her. She hesitated, then took it. It smelled pleasant, like flowers and earth. "It is called tea," Marcus said, sitting across from her. "An earth drink. One of the few peaceful things my species can claim to have invented." Zathari sipped it carefully. The taste was strange but not unpleasant. "Why did you leave Earth? Why risk death to escape the quarantine?" Marcus stared into his own cup. "Because staying was slower death. Imagine being told that your entire species is too dangerous to be trusted. That you must stay in one system forever because you come from a world that made you strong. That is not justice, princess. That is a prison. But Earth has problems. The Council's reports say your world is divided, violent." "Yes," Marcus interrupted. "Earth has problems. We have wars. We have divisions. We have not achieved the perfect peace that species like yours enjoy. But we are trying. We are growing. And we deserve the chance to prove ourselves, not be locked away and forgotten." Before Zathari could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Marcus jumped to his feet and ran to the cockpit. The princess followed, her heart pounding. "What is it?" "Ships coming out of hyperspace," Marcus said grimly, his fingers flying over the controls. "Multiple signatures. And they are broadcasting Council Enforcement Division codes." On the screen, Zathari saw 3 sleek warships emerge from hyperspace, surrounding them in a triangle formation. They were beautiful ships, elegant and deadly, bearing the symbol of the Galactic Council. A voice came over the communication channel, cold and precise. "Unidentified freighter. This is Enforcer Prime Keldorian of the Galactic Council. We have detected a human life sign aboard your vessel. Surrender the human immediately and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in your destruction." Marcus's jaw tightened. "They tracked us somehow. Must have picked up biological signatures when we left Refuge Station." Zathari made a decision. She pushed Marcus aside and activated the communication panel herself. "This is Princess Zathari of the Valrosian Empire. I am aboard this vessel under the protection of Princess Zathari." The enforcer's voice interrupted, sounding almost pleased. "We have been searching for you. Your father, the Emperor, has been informed of your location. He demands your immediate return to Valrosian space." Relief flooded through Zathari. Her father knew she was alive. She could go home. The nightmare could end. However, The enforcer continued. The human aboard your vessel must be surrendered. Council law is absolute on this matter. All humans found outside the quarantine zone are to be captured or eliminated. No exceptions. The relief turned to ice in Zathari's chest. This human saved my life. He protected me when no one else could. That is irrelevant. Surrender the human, and you will be escorted home safely. Refuse, and we will be forced to board your vessel and take the human by force. Your safety cannot be guaranteed in such an operation. Zathari looked at Marcus. The human stood calmly, as if he had expected this. There was no fear in his eyes, only a quiet acceptance. Do it, Marcus said softly. Turn me over. You will be safe. That is what matters. No, Zathari said firmly. Princess, I said no. Her voice rang with authority, the voice of someone born to rule. She turned back to the communication panel. Enforcer Prime, Keldorian, I refuse your demand. This human has committed no crime except being born on the wrong world. I will not hand him over to be imprisoned or executed for something beyond his control. There was a long silence. Then the enforcer's voice came back, colder than before. Princess, your father will be displeased. He has already arranged a political marriage for you with the Korthan heir. This union will prevent the war. You are needed immediately. Zathari felt the words like a physical blow. A political marriage. Her father had sold her future for peace. She had suspected it might come to this, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. You will return to Velros immediately, the enforcer continued, and the human will be surrendered to council authority. These are your father's orders, and they are not negotiable. For her entire life, Zathari had obeyed her father. She had been the perfect daughter, the perfect princess, the perfect diplomat. She had put duty before happiness, responsibility before freedom. But now, staring at Marcus, this human who had shown her that the galaxy was not what she thought it was, she made a choice that would change everything. No, she said clearly, I refuse my father's orders. Silence filled the ship. Her own guards stared at her in shock. Marcus looked at her with something between horror and admiration. You refuse? The enforcer's voice dripped with disbelief. I refuse to abandon someone who saved my life. I refuse to participate in the imprisonment of an innocent being. And I refuse to accept that my only value is as a political bargaining chip. Zathari stood tall, her crystalline skin glowing bright with determination. If the Galactic Council's idea of justice is to punish an entire species for being different, then perhaps the Council is wrong. The communication channel went silent. Then the enforcer spoke again, and this time there was anger in his voice. Very well, Princess. You have made your choice. All ships, prepare to board. Capture the human. The princess is to be taken into protective custody for her own safety. The 3 warships began to move closer, weapons charging. Marcus grabbed Zathari's arm. Are you insane? They will take you by force. Then we run, Zathari said. You are good at running, are you not? Despite everything, Marcus smiled. I am good at many things. Come on. They ran back to the cockpit. Marcus's fingers flew over the controls while he explained his plan. It was desperate and probably suicidal, but it was all they had. There is an ancient communication relay on the edge of the demarcation zone, Marcus said. Terminus Lighthouse. It is abandoned but still functional. If we can reach it and boost the signal, we can transmit your testimony about me across the galaxy. Every news network, every independent journalist, everyone who is not controlled by the Council will hear it. And then what? One of her guards asked. Then maybe, just maybe, public opinion will force the Council to reconsider their policies on humans. Or at least force them to spare one human's life. Marcus looked at Zathari. But it means fighting our way there. The enforcers will not let us go. Neither will the Skrull. We will have every enemy in the sector coming for us. Zathari thought of her comfortable life in the palace. She thought of her duty, her family, her empire. Then she thought of the 15 years of evidence on that data chip. She thought of Marcus, fighting to protect her, even though the galaxy had declared his entire species unworthy of freedom. "Do it," she said. Marcus nodded and pushed the engines to maximum. The broken promise shot forward, weaving between the enforcer ships before they could react. Weapons fire lit up space around them as they dove toward the nearest debris field. Behind them, the 3 warships gave chase. And somewhere ahead, the Skrull fleet was also moving, drawn by the increased bounty on the princess's head. They were being hunted by everyone. But for the first time in her life, Zathari felt truly free. She had chosen her own path, and whatever happened next, she would face it with honor. Marcus piloted the ship through impossible maneuvers, dodging weapons fire and using every trick he knew. Zathari sat beside him, holding on tight. As explosions bloomed around them and alarms screamed warnings, she realized something important. The galaxy had taught her that humans were monsters. But this human had shown her more courage, honor, and kindness than most civilized beings she had ever known. If that made him a monster, then perhaps she needed to reconsider what the word civilized truly meant. "How far to Terminus Lighthouse?" she asked. 4 hours at maximum speed, Marcus replied, not taking his eyes off the controls. 4 hours to change the galaxy, or die trying. Zathari smiled, fierce and determined. Then let us make those 4 hours count. The broken promise disappeared into hyperspace, racing toward its destiny, carrying a princess and a human who were about to challenge everything the galaxy believed. Terminus Lighthouse appeared on their sensors like a ghost from another age. It was a massive structure floating in the void, built by an ancient civilization that had disappeared long before the Galactic Council existed. The relay station was shaped like a tower, covered in old symbols and reaching out into space with transmission arrays that could send signals across half the galaxy. "It is beautiful," Zathari whispered. "It is our only chance," Marcus replied, guiding the damaged broken promise toward the docking port. "Once we are inside, we seal ourselves in and start the transmission. The station's shields are old but strong. They will hold for a while." "How long is a while?" Marcus did not answer, which told Zathari everything she needed to know. They docked without incident and rushed inside the ancient station. The air was stale but breathable. Emergency lights flickered on as they moved through corridors that had been empty for centuries. Dust covered everything. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Marcus led them to the central control room, a vast chamber filled with technology that was incredibly old, yet still functional. Holographic displays burst to life as they entered, showing star charts and communication networks that spanned the known galaxy. "Help me activate the transmission array," Marcus said to Zathari's guards. Despite their distrust of the human, they obeyed. They knew this was bigger than their personal feelings. While Marcus worked on the technical aspects, Zathari prepared what she would say. She was a diplomat, trained in the art of words. She would make this count. "They are coming," one of the guards reported from a scanner station. "Multiple ships. I count 3 Council enforcement vessels and at least 6 Skrull raiders." "Of course they are," Marcus muttered, his fingers flying across the alien controls. "They tracked us here. This place is perfect for a last stand, nowhere to run. Strong defenses, and we control the high ground. They will have to come to us." "Can you defend against all of them?" Zathari asked. Marcus looked at her, and she saw the truth in his eyes. "I can make them pay dearly for every meter they take." "But 9 ships? No, I cannot hold against those odds forever." "Then we make this count." Zathari moved to the transmission controls. How long do you need to get the signal strong enough to bypass Council sensors? 20 minutes to boost the power. Then, the transmission itself will take 5 minutes to propagate across the relay network. 25 minutes total. Then you will have 25 minutes. Zathari turned to her guards. Help them prepare the defenses. Use everything this station has. What followed was a desperate race against time. Marcus showed them how to reactivate the station's ancient defense systems. Automated turrets that had slept for millennia powered up. Energy shields that had protected against forgotten wars hummed to life. Marcus also set up his own surprises explosives at key choke points, traps in the corridors, anything that would slow down their enemies. They are here, the scanner station announced. On the displays, Zathari watched the ships arrive. The 3 sleek enforcement vessels took position around the station, their weapons aimed at the shields. The Skrull raiders spread out, looking for weak points to exploit. A communication request came through. Marcus nodded to Zathari. She activated it. Enforcer Prime Keldorian's face appeared on the display. He was a Korthan, tall and elegant with golden skin and 4 arms. His expression was cold and disapproving. Princess Zathari, this ends now. Surrender yourself and the human. There is no escape. I do not wish to escape, Zathari said calmly. I wish to speak the truth, something the Council seems to fear. The Council fears nothing, Keldorian replied. We maintain order. We protect the civilized galaxy from chaos. Humans represent chaos, violence, unpredictability, danger. They must be contained. This human saved my life, Zathari said firmly. He has shown more honor than you are showing now. Honor? Keldorian laughed, a harsh sound. Humans know nothing of honor. They come from a world of endless war. They evolved to be killers. Every study confirms this. They are dangerous animals wearing the mask of civilization. From beside Zathari, Marcus spoke for the first time. You are right about one thing, Enforcer. We are dangerous. Earth made us that way. But being dangerous does not make us evil. It just means we have the power to choose. Choose? Keldorian's expression twisted with disgust. Your species cannot even choose peace among yourselves. You wage war constantly. Yes, we have wars, Marcus admitted. We have conflict. We have not achieved your perfect galactic harmony. But we are growing. We are learning. And we deserve the chance to prove we can be more than what you fear. The Council disagrees. And the Council's decision is final. Then the Council is wrong, Zathari declared. And I intend to tell the entire galaxy why. She cut the communication. Keldorian's face disappeared, replaced by targeting alarms. The enforcement ships opened fire. The ancient shields held, absorbing the energy blasts with surprising strength. But Zathari knew they would not last forever. Already, the Skrull raiders were launching boarding craft toward the station's docking ports. Here they come, Marcus said, checking his weapons. Stay in the control room. Let me handle the first wave. You cannot fight them all alone, one of her guards protested. Marcus smiled, and it was a frightening expression. Watch me. The human disappeared into the corridors, moving like a predator into the darkness. Zathari watched on the station's internal scanners as the Skrull boarding parties breached the outer hall. They came in force, 30 warriors at least, heavily armed and seeking revenge for their fallen comrades. They met Marcus in the narrow corridors, and Zathari watched in horrified fascination as one human held back an army. Marcus used every advantage. He triggered the traps he had set, sending explosives into packed groups of raiders. He activated old security systems that filled corridors with fire and electricity. He used the environment itself as a weapon, venting atmosphere in certain sections, sealing blast doors to separate enemy forces. even using the station's gravity controls to throw raiders off balance. But more than technology, Marcus used something the Skrull could not match: adaptability. Every time they thought they had figured out his tactics, he changed them. Every time they tried to predict his moves, he did something unexpected. He fought with a creativity that came from evolving on a world where survival meant constant innovation. The Skrull fell, one by one. But Marcus was not untouched. Zathari saw him take hits, saw blood staining his suit. Still, he fought on, driven by something beyond mere survival. "The transmission array is ready," one of her guards announced. "We can begin whenever you wish, Princess." Zathari took a deep breath and positioned herself before the recording device. This was it. This was her chance to speak truth to the entire galaxy. "Begin transmission," she ordered. The recording light activated. Zathari stood tall, every inch the imperial princess she had been raised to be. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of her station and the passion of her conviction. "People of the galaxy, I am Princess Zairi, third in line to the celestial throne of Velros. I speak to you now from Terminus Lighthouse, and I bring you a truth that the Galactic Council does not want you to hear. 10 days ago, my diplomatic vessel was attacked by Skrull raiders. My honor guard fought bravely, but they fell. I was certain I would die. Then a stranger appeared, a warrior wearing a sealed suit, refusing to reveal their identity. This stranger saved my life, not once, but multiple times over the following days. This stranger fought off raiders, navigated deadly dangers, and protected me when no one else could. This stranger showed courage, honor, and skill that rivaled the greatest warriors of any species I have ever known. And when I finally learned this stranger's identity, I was shocked. Because the warrior who saved me, who showed such nobility and honor, was human. The Galactic Council tells us that humans are dangerous, that they are too violent, too primitive, too uncontrolled to be trusted. The Council has imprisoned an entire species in their home system, punishing billions for the crime of coming from a harsh world. But I have seen the truth. Yes, humans are dangerous. Yes, they come from a world that made them strong and fierce. But strength is not the same as evil. The capacity for violence is not the same as the desire for violence. The human who saved me, Marcus Corvus, is everything the Council says humans should not be. He is intelligent, honorable, compassionate, and willing to sacrifice himself to protect others. If this is what humans become when given the chance, then the Council's fear is not of human violence, it is fear of human potential. I have evidence, 15 years of records showing humans helping others across the galaxy. Humans healing the sick, protecting the weak, building where others only destroy. These are not the actions of monsters. These are the actions of a species that deserves freedom. I stand here today, risking everything, to say that the Council is wrong. Humanity deserves a chance. They deserve to be judged by their actions, not by their origins. They deserve the same rights and freedoms that every other species in the galaxy enjoys. And if the Council disagrees, if they continue to imprison an entire species out of fear, then they prove that they are not the enlightened civilization they claim to be. They are simply bullies with power, afraid of anyone who might challenge their authority.